You had mentioned Dave Ramsey, and he's a prominent voice in helping people. And he is not for whole life policies.
Not
so can
at
you
all.
explain why they've gotten a bad rap and where the misinformation is?
By the way, chapter 2 of the book says, why does Dave and Susie hate whole life? And for good reason, because Dale said, first part, because policies are designed horrifically. And Dave, when I heard him on that reaction video, I don't know if we released it yet or not.
It's coming out.
But he is talking about policies that were designed in the 1950s. I swear he's not talking about the policies of today. And so it's weird. And then he goes, why would anyone want to overfund it? I'm like, well, why would we overfund a mutual fund? Why would we put more money to that? Well, if you're getting more benefits, more return, and more cash that you have access to along the way, that's why you would do it. Money can be complicated. Let a nerd help you. We're here to demystify the complex nature of money by getting you answers from financial nerds and whiz kids. Welcome to Ask the Money Nerds, a weekly segment of the Wealth Labs podcast where we answer your most pressing money questions. So, Stolba, what's going on?
Well, there's a lot going on in my world these days.
You seem more like you got too much going on. Like you want more order in your life.
That's so true. Garrett's like my guru here. He just like picked up. I've been feeling life's like a little chaotic.
Hey, I was feeling that yesterday morning, so that's why I moved all those meetings. And I actually ironed this shirt while I was on the phone with you.
Was that very therapeutic?
I was like, I'm gonna iron my clothes. I just want organization in my life.
Yeah.
And so I washed my truck. I used to own a car detailing business, when I was 15
Gunderson
years
Car
old.
Care.
Oh yeah, Garrett Gunderson Car Care, uniquely named.
I have a car. Do you want to detail it?
I mean, I would do that for you as a nice gesture to make you feel better.
Okay.
I've got a vacuum downstairs. I've got a pressure washer here. No. So, that'd be funny if I just see that on my calendar. Wash Stolba's car.
Yeah. Hey, I could start using this whole, I'm in charge of your calendar thing to my advantage. I haven't done that in the 3.5 years that I've worked with you.
I do say sometimes you feel like I'm a robot when you're like, okay, I just need you to do 27 videos and 33 outlines.
That's
and
true.
I'm like,
just
over what time?
Garrett is
Again,
human.
I don't always know how to estimate and plan for what he can produce.
It's just like when we film a 20-minute video and you're like, well, how long is that? 6 minutes?
Okay, my estimation skills are not on point, is what you're saying.
He can outproduce the majority of us.
That's true.
I have good support.
But not this next year. That's my goal, is to outproduce Garrett Gunderson.
I like it.
Okay.
That's going to be good for me, so do it.
I have to. I've been feeling, I asked you guys before we started filming.
I have 2 kids, so I'm at a disadvantage already.
Right.
Oh, no. Yeah, I don't have any kids, so I guess
just
I have
a niece that likes to hang out with you all the time.
Yes. Yeah, and I do love having her in my life. I was telling you guys before the break, I'm like, I asked you, I was like, do you guys feel old? And you said no. And I said, I do. And I'm the youngest of the bunch, feeling the oldest.
When I turned 40, my arm got a rash on it the day I turned 40. I was like, is my body giving up? Are we done? Is it over with?
Are you sure you didn't just bump into some poison ivy at the cabin or something?
I just turned 42 and I have no rashes and I'm doing well.
Okay. Oh,
minus a hernia, but other than that, I mean. Okay, TMI, go.
Let's dive in.
Now you share something you shouldn't share.
Oh, no. I'm way more private than you are. Dale, do you have anything?
I have no filter.
Let's just dive into the question before we get out of hand here. Jason's question, he wrote in and he says, I've been following your videos for a few months now and inquired about a cash flow banking life insurance policy. The cost is about what I anticipated for a plan like this. How long could I expect my cash value to exceed the actual out-of-pocket cost I paid for the policy? This assumes many constants, of course. Let's use an annual cost of $12,000 for the policy. Assume a steady percentage interest on the cash value. I'm 37, married with 2 kids, and not sure if this is worth doing if the cash value does not help me in the next 4 to 5 years. Either way, it's evident that our income needs to be greater to afford such beneficial plans like this. Or do I forget about this plan for myself and just open one up for my 2 kids today?
That's why we got Dale Clark here.
Yep.
Yes.
Happy to be here, by the way. How long does it take to have your cash value exceed, what you paid into it?
It's a great question.
It completely depends on the structure and the way you set the policy up.
Give us the ideal structure.
So the ideal structure is, I'm going to say, between 5 and 6 years. I've actually seen it, in previous policies, years past, 4 years. if you don't overfund the policy, break-even point could be 15 years down the road.
Wow.
So there's really four different types of whole life insurance.
Okay.
There's number one, there's the death benefit focused policy. And this is a policy that has no paid up additions, no overfunding. Those type of policies can take 15 to 20 years to break even.
Wow.
No wonder it has a bad name. You hear Dave Ramsey talk on the radio about life insurance, whole life insurance, and he just says it has a horrible rap. And I'm like, dude, if I set up a policy like that, I'd feel the same way. Mm-hmm. So that's the first type of policy. The second type of policy is a cash accumulation focused policy. And these policies are ones that have specific riders that we add to the policy, paid up additions riders, term riders that can increase the death benefit so we can increase the MEC limit, which is the amount that we're allowed to overfund without becoming taxable. Mm-hmm. So we can add riders like that, long-term care riders, disability riders. So cash accumulation focused policies focus heavily on the paid up additions rider and the term riders. Number three is a high cash value accumulation policy. Now, this is just the opposite. This one actually sounds the best of the bunch, but it's literally one of the worst. Because
why is that?
These high cash accumulation focused policies you literally have like 90% cash value on the day that you start the policy. So it sounds great, right? The problem is that they vastly underperform the cash accumulation focused policy 5-6 years down the road. And when you look at projections 20, 30, 40 years, I mean, we're talking like six figures in difference between.
It's like deep fried food. Tastes amazing. So good up front.
You know it.
But not good for you long term, Stolba.
That's right.
Those arteries start clogging up. You start feeling old when you're young, I mean, not that you know what I'm talking about, but
not at all.
What a good analogy, Garrett.
My first one was so inappropropriate, so I was gled I came up with a better one.
That was good. So eat your fruits and veggies is what we're saying here. The cash accumulation focus are, superior. And then there's a fourth type of product that, when you're in your later years, 70s, 80s, there is a estate planning focused policy that can be owned by an irrevocable life insurance trust or other type of, trust structures.
I just like how he says this stuff like it's common knowledge.
I know.
Just like thinking, it's an irrevocable life insurance trust. You know those things. You were reading about it this morning, weren't you, Stolba, when you woke up?
Totally. I started my day at 4:30 reading about it.
It's just a way to transfer a policy where you gift the money to your heirs without taxation to avoid that through something called a crummy letter. Mm-hmm. Which sounds crummy to me, but it allows you to kind of remove it from the estate and it pays estate tax.
Okay.
My preference is that you just maximize what you've got now and then, handle it properly with trust that you have access to cash, where irrevocable life insurance trust, you don't have access to cash. But that's kind of like I didn't plan properly. I'm last minute. What am I going to do type of policy?
Exactly. Yeah. Now, there are a couple of variables that help determine the break-even point. I call it the break-even point. Mm-hmm. A couple of them are, what is your gender? Men tend to have worse rating or higher costs than women do. Your age. So the younger you are, if you're in your 20s and 30s, the policy is going to be superior than if you're in your 50s and 60s setting up the plan, although you can still make it work when you're in your 50s,
fund
60s.
It properly to make it. You're just going to get less death benefit.
You're just going to get less death benefit. Yeah. So those are a couple of things that matter. And then also your health rating. If you're a tobacco user, the policy is going to grow about 30% less cash rich. Break-even point might be much longer down the road. Mm-hmm.
Are you allowed to smoke tobacco pipes?
You can once or twice, a year.
I'm just wondering, for a friend.
Not that you've ever done that before. Oh my God!
I already have 27 policies before I started.
Don't we have a podcast that has Garrett?
Can I compensate that I stopped drinking? That would help, or I don't inhale. Me or Bill Clinton, we just don't inhale.
Right.
I just like entertaining you.
I'm so curious about the difference between the male and female.
Right.
Like why is there a higher cost for males?
If you think about it,
who's the bigger jackass, male or female? Who's the more dangerous, stupid things?
Right.
Who lives longer?
It's basically who lives longer.
Okay.
So if the average woman lives 5 to 6 years longer than the average man, then they're going to charge more cost for the insurance policy for the man than the woman.
Okay. So you were saying earlier that starting in your 20s and your 30s is a really prime age to do so.
Absolutely.
If I think of myself in my 20s and I had no idea what this was and that a whole life overfunded whole life policy even existed. But for those that do, like, what would be a good place for them to start? Let's say they're in college or they're just out of college. I mean, $50 a month.
That's where I started.
Can they do $25 a month?
My first policy was $50 a month.
Was it really that low? Wow.
My second one was $262 a month, which was mostly overfunding. The first one was just a baseline policy.
Okay.
Just 19 years old, starting somewhere.
Right.
So I always look at progress over perfection.
Yep.
Just getting in the habit, you know, and you don't want to overextend yourself to do this perfectly and then you harm your cash flow. One of the things in Jason's question that I thought deserves something, he says, hey, if the cash value doesn't help me in the next 4 to 5 years, then it's not really worth doing. Well, look, this is a midterm strategy to store cash. It's not a short-term strategy. Savings accounts are better. Long-term strategy, there's probably other investments that might outperform it, but that's a might. You have to usually be active in those, make sure they're going to work. I wouldn't say mutual funds are going to. We had Tim Carden on. We showed with software that they were almost equal with less risk and full access to the cash. So I don't know why saying only 4 to 5 years. It might just be, you know, the circumstance. But look, I feel like now more than ever, we're going to have to use our cash values because they're printing so much money. And with this influx of money, and they're not even printing it, they're just adding it to computer screens. Right. But we're going to have to actually be more active with our investing to find things that create recurring revenue. We're going to have to take our paper assets and turn them into physical assets, whether that's a business or whether that's a piece of real estate, or, you know, it could be intellectual property, which is still kind of paper, but more digital. But just to sit on this forever isn't what it used to be, because I think inflation is going to be pretty difficult and we have such low interest rates. But as a storage facility for my money, I can think of no better place. It's protected from liability and bankruptcy. I have access to the cash very easily. There isn't taxation on it. And when I don't know what to do with the money, just leaving it there, it's doing way better than anything else with stability. You
don't have to wait till you're 59 and a half to access the money.
Right.
You can access it now, which is a huge point. Here, one thing that I, as I was reading this question, Jason, you talked about, is it better to set up the policy on my kids or should I set it up on myself? And I just looked at that and I'm like, man, you're a young guy. 37 years old, perfect timing to set a policy up. When I was in my mid-30s, I set up my first policy, cost me about $600 a month. I still have it to this day. It's been 14 years, and it's been a really good tool for me. Here's something that a lot of people don't talk about. When you apply for a policy on your children, there is no medical exam required. There's no paramed. There's no blood draw. There's no urine sample. And because of that, the best health class that a child can get is a juvenile class, a standard non-tobacco health class. If you're over the age of 18 and you're willing to submit to that medical exam, you can actually secure a health class that could be 2 or 3 times, higher, like the ultra preferred or the preferred plus classification. And so when you compare side by side a policy on a child that gets a standard versus an adult that gets ultra preferred, cash accumulation on the adult oftentimes, trumps what happens on the child.
Even though there are more years.
Yeah, the only difference is that the kid's going to have a lot more death benefit than the adult.
For the dollar.
Okay.
But the cash accumulation is more efficient.
He's focused on cash, but I want to focus on the death benefit for a while.
Okay.
Yeah, explain that. What is a death benefit? Why is it important?
I'll let you do that, and then I'll explain how to utilize it.
Well, so when you buy a life insurance policy, whether it's a temporary policy or a permanent policy, temporary is what we call term life insurance, and then permanent or cash value life insurance is, whole life insurance, and there's other variants, universal life, variable index universal life. Stay away from those. In most situations, they're not the right way to go. But the death benefit is basically what is the face value of the policy that when you get to that age where you are going to pass away, what gets passed on to your estate tax-free.
Okay.
So I think that the death benefit is undervalued and underutilized because of a lack of information. I'm of the notion that we buy our net worth and build cash flow. The way I buy my net worth is death benefit. Sure, it's death benefit that comes in after I die, but if I know I'm going to die and I know money's coming in after I die, then I can actually be pretty creative and spend that while I'm alive. So in understanding that, what the death benefit becomes is synergistically beneficial in coordinating with other lazy, non-cash flowing assets and becomes like a key to unlock those assets to create cash flow. And I still have my cash value I can utilize while I'm alive, but a death benefit can help as a backstop. I mean, we have a whole, I would go to billionairesmethod.com, billionairesmethod.com, grab the book, read the chapter on that, because I discuss 6 different ways you can actually benefit and utilize and increase your cash flow 20 to 50% because of the existence of a death benefit, which creates an additional synergistic return for people that they're not even considering, that they're only looking at the cash value. So cash value is one play, taxes and safety are another play, benefits are another play, and death benefits are the biggest play that most people don't even understand. So Billionaire's Method, I think, will be the best way to figure that out.
Okay. I have one question. You know, you had mentioned Dave Ramsey, and he's a prominent voice in helping people, and he is not for whole life policies.
Not
so can
at
you
all.
explain why they've gotten a bad rap and where the misinformation is?
By the way, chapter 2 of the book says, why does Dave and Susie hate whole life? And for good reason, because Dale said, first part, because policies are designed horrifically. And Dave, when I heard him on that reaction video, I don't know if we released it yet or not.
It's coming out.
But he is talking about policies that were designed in the 1950s. I swear he's not talking about the policies of today. And so it's weird. And then he goes, why would anyone want to overfund it? I'm like, well, why would we overfund a mutual fund? Why would we put more money to that? Well, if you're getting more benefits, more return, and more cash that you have access to along the way, that's why you would do it. Like, it's weird that he has such a dogmatic approach to this, because his entire notion and mindset is, how do we reduce expenses by living off beans and rice? And when we reduce those expenses, then we can fund these mutual funds that are overhyped and underperforming and tons of fees and lots of risk. But that's, for whatever reason, his methodology. And he's gotten less and less strategic and more angry that he's just like, this is how it is. This is proven, and you're an idiot if you don't listen to me. And it's really disgusting, because I feel like he's helped free a lot of people in some ways and created more financial bondage in others. And the way that he's freed people is those train wrecks that have been so off track and didn't know what to do. And he was a voice that said, here's what you got to do to get back on track. But now it's like, you're stupid is his main message. And I hate that message. And cutting back is his main message. But I think, you know, we don't shrink our way to wealth. It's not a game of reduction. It's a game of production. It's a game of value creation and exchange. It's a game of serving others and solving problems. It's investing in ourselves. And sometimes that requires allocation of money. And if our money is only about reducing, then life gets pretty crappy.
Yeah, if the advice that he would give on the show would be what he does in his personal life,
Built a massive business.
Absolutely.
Massive business.
I think it's worth $300 million today, and he owns a $80 million commercial building. And his business just creates massive cash flow. I mean, that's the kind of message that I think is inspiring, not the live off rice and beans philosophy.
You've tried that. How was that?
It just didn't work very well for me. I was a lot.
You didn't even do rice and beans. You did peanut butter and Miracle Whip, buddy.
I liked it at the time until I looked at my body. And
Okay,
I
next
don't like
episode, we're going to have peanut butter and Miracle Whip sandwiches, and we're going to eat them together. I've never had one.
I'm not doing it.
Just try it.
It is.
I'll go make one. I'll go make one right now.
Sweet taste. You're gonna love it.
All right.
Zangy and sweet. I don't know if I like the word zangy for a descriptive.
It's like that's like eating salsa that's like 2 months past its prime. Like the tomato. This is very zangy. All right. What do we got? Still anything else?
You know, I think we covered all of Jason's questions.
And some of yours.
And some of mine.
Thanks for being that advocate for us, Stolba. All right, so here's the deal. Billionairesmethod.com. It's time to turn your thoughts into profit. Navigate this crazy world, especially when it comes to allocation of your money for the midterm and where you're going to keep it safe, secure, and stable. And then just do the things that make you love life. Build that life that you love.